Hi guys, and welcome to this video on the new moon in Capricorn, which happens on the 11th of January 2024. Thanks for joining me. It's a pleasure to be with you today. The chart you see next to me here, that's a snapshot of the sky at the moment this new moon will take place. And I'm based in Central Europe, so I look at this via Central European time. And in my time zone, this happens at 12:57 in the afternoon. If you're west of Europe and North or South America, it'll happen early in the morning on the 11th of January. And if you're east of Europe in Asia, then it'll happen in the afternoon or in the evening on the 11th of January. Now, a new moon and a full moon, it's an event that doesn't just happen at 1 minute and then it's over. It's a gradual process, and my sense is that we're able to tap into it and make the most of it for about a 3-day period. So this you'll specifically feel on the 11th, but you'll also be able to tap into it on the 10th of January, and you'll also feel it on the 12th of January. So this is a nice kind of 3-day period where you can really focus on what it is you want to create next and get very clear on what that is. So I'm going to analyze the chart to see how the planets interact with each other, how they're placed around the chart, which is a snapshot of the sky at the moment this will happen. I'm going to analyze that to get an idea of how this benefits all of us. And then I'm going to go through each sign of the zodiac, going from Aries all the way through to Pisces, to get an idea of what area of your life this is most likely to show up in. So again, you can really make the most of the positives and avoid some of the potential negatives. So let's see then. We've got the chart, and what I notice first and foremost is that the new moon forms very few relationships with other things in the chart. It creates a T-square, which I'll go into, and it also conjuncts one other planet. So it's an energy that's uninterrupted and it's straightforward. And in my experience, that indicates that this is an energy that will be easy to tap into and implement. So the sense I get about this new moon is that it's one which is very decisive and it's got very good boundaries, and it gives you clarity as to what is it that I want to do next, what is it that I want to do in a practical way, and how can I prepare for things coming up so that I don't waste any of my time and energy. And that isn't because it's in Capricorn or because it's a new moon. It's just via these very few connections that it makes that the sense I'm getting is that this is something that even if you find it kind of difficult to pin things down at times, this is an energy that's actually going to make you feel like it's suddenly very clear, and being concise is the way forward. And of course I'm going to make this decision because it feels right. There's not a lot of question about this. There's not a lot of self-doubt. It's very much about, I know where I'm at, I know what's good for me and for my life, so I'm going to do that. So if you struggle with self-doubt or even procrastination or a lack of certainty, this new moon is amazing for that because it's going to provide you with all of these things free of charge, right? So the new moon in itself is when the sun and the moon conjunct. They're at the same degree here, 20 degrees in Capricorn. And I always describe the sun as your head and the moon as your heart. If I'm looking at your birth chart, then the sun indicates the identity that you'd like to move into. It's what gives you a sense of power and happiness and joy. And this is what I want to embody for a great sense of ability and control, and me being myself, which has good outcomes and good effects on my practical circumstances. The moon is very different. It's what I feel internally. It's what isn't up for discussion. It's my inner environment and what I naturally tap into. So when the two conjunct, I think it's a wonderful time where your head and your heart are in the same spot and they're able to talk to each other very well. So when this happens, the moon goes pitch black and it kind of hangs out a do not disturb sign outside the front door. And it says, I need a bit of peace and quiet, please. I'm taking moments for myself. I'm pulling all of this Capricorn energy in because I want to get ready for my next 28-day cycle. And I want to make sure that I approach that with a sense of being informed and prepared. And again, I don't want to just traipse into this scenario and do a little bit of this and that. No, I've got 28 days ahead of me. How am I going to spend that 28-day period effectively? And not only that, it's a new moon in Capricorn. So the energy that's being pulled in here is an earth energy that's very associated with the intellectual or practical structures in your life. So your living situation, your house, how you see yourself living there for how many more years, the contract, am I going to move? How do I create an income? What is my work? What works well in my life where I put energy into it, I get energy back? It's all of these things that have some sort of measurable aspect to them. As in, I work a 40-hour week and this is what I get in return. Capricorn likes that sense of clarity very much. And with all this energy being absorbed by the new moon, anything in your life that you're uncertain about, during this new moon period, you'll be able to evaluate that. And you'll be able to say, does this still suit me? Is it a good fit? Is it a bad fit? How much do I put in and how much do I get out of it? It's also at 20 degrees. So the sun and the moon are at 20 degrees. 20 reduces to 2 in numerology, and 2 is about cooperation and relationship. So it's not just that your head and your heart are in the same spot and talking to each other. It's also the degree that they're at emphasizes and expands upon that energy, and anything that is unsuitable is going to become highlighted to you, and it's going to be very easy to pinpoint. Whether it is your living situation or a relationship that you're putting a lot of work into, or your physical health, why certain things may be the way they are because of certain behaviors or the way your diet is or exercise. It's really the outcome in connection with the potential cause. So you become someone who's like someone who's very able to create meaning and to understand things by the practical circumstances in your life. You'll be able to make sense of those very easily. And you also become very practical about your feelings. Why could I be feeling this way? Is it maybe an indicator that this is not something I should engage with? Or is it, do I feel this way because something's missing and I ought to bring more of it into my life? So it tries to make rules for you, not in a way that's like you must follow this and this and this. This is what's worked for you in the past. This is what's likely to work for you in future. Get clear on that and rearrange your circumstances so that things suit you more. And with it being the first new moon of the year, it's not just about gathering kind of information and knowledge about your current circumstances. It's also going to be about what do I want to create in the year ahead. So sitting on top of this new moon then, we have Pluto at 29 degrees in Capricorn. And Pluto is the planet of transformation and change, death and rebirth. And I always associate it with the phoenix rising from the ashes. It's extremes, right? And Pluto is going through its own thing at the moment. On the 21st of January, it's going to move into Aquarius. It's been in Capricorn for the most part since 2008. And it's going to stay in Aquarius pretty much until 2044. So for the next 21 years, I've made a separate video on this. So if you want more information about what this new era is all about, then please look at that video. It's really a significant shift in what we're all going to experience. But in this case, it's exactly 9 degrees away from this new moon, which is pulling all of this Capricorn energy in. But when things conjunct in a chart, and I use 10 degree orbs. So when something is within 10 degrees, I count that as a relationship. So this is, again, very much at the extreme end of that, 1 being the very beginning and 9 being the very end. 9 degrees away and at 29 degrees, that is, if you add it up, 2 and 9 is 11. 11 is the master number of service. And in Capricorn, it then says, how can you use this great communication that's going on within you at the moment in order to transform things so that you can serve yourself? And if you then extend that, if you're happier in life because you put these things in place that are going to suit you, then other people around you are also going to benefit because you'll be happy and happier in your everyday experience of that. So we're pulling in this decisive, hard-working energy of Capricorn, but we're also pulling in Pluto and saying, this is the moment before a huge change of everything. Not only do I want to prepare for the next 28 days, I want to get my circumstances in order for this new era. So it feels almost like this is the last chance. It isn't, but it feels like that, to get clear on what my work is all about and my health and my practical circumstances and whether I'm happy living in this location or whether I should move. There's a sense of urgency involved with this that says if you want to make changes now, it's time to do it. So it gives you a huge amount of confidence because it feels urgent. It's like, do something now before things move on in life and this opportunity, this window closes. So it will really prompt you. And if you look at it in an extreme way, it could even feel like it fills you with some anxiety that says, listen, you've been thinking about these changes for a while. It's crunch time. Now's the time to choose A over B and to just do it. So this is the just do it new moon. Usually when something feels like that, I say that's a red flag. Usually when something feels urgent and it makes you anxious and it's like you have to act now, otherwise something dreadful is going to happen, I always associate that with ego guidance. So your shadow self trying to kind of create more problems. And higher self guidance is to do with messages that are repetitive and they don't make you feel anxious. They make you feel calm and like you have all the time in the world. And they're kind of hard to hear at times. You have to really focus on them sometimes. But even though this has an element of urgency to it, I think that rather than you being misdirected or misleaded, if that's a word, misled by your ego, I think this is more about, I'm now giving you the confidence to make those changes happen, to stop the self-doubt, and to just let the chips fall where they may. The key thing is to just do it. So the other relationships then, it forms, the new moon that is, it forms a square with the North Node in Aries and Chiron in Aries. So Chiron is the wounded healer. It's the thing in the chart that represents something that can be problematic until you work through it to turn it into an actual strength. So it's also, again, associated with transformation and change. If I'm taking a wound and I'm turning it into a scar, then there's a process of one thing being something at a particular point in time and then becoming something else. And it's at 15 degrees in Aries, and it says, what opportunities do you have right now to really heal something that's been a big pain for you in your life for a while? And what can you do independently? How can you use your energy to now heal that for yourself? So look at those things which have been a pain in your neck for a while, for the last few months or the last few years, and where you felt that this is such a big problem that I'm intimidated to change it. Maybe I should just deal with it at another time when it feels easier. Now's the time to face those things and to use this energy that feels like it's almost like the last chance to have Capricorn, to maximize all the blessings Capricorn gives you, which is decisiveness and hard work. The thing that this doesn't focus on so much is really about where are the fun things in life that work naturally. And I think that that is okay because you have so much potential to actually make things happen that it's okay to be serious and to say, I will make these changes. You know, if it was a time where it doesn't matter how hard I work and how much I try, because nothing is likely to change, then it would almost be cruel. I've got all of this focus and I'm doing so much and nothing is shifting. But the case here is that you can take something really significant that's either painful or unpleasant or unwanted, or it's a dynamic that you haven't been able to kick out of your life and shift. And here you can say, I'm going to embrace this bravery and I'm going to face this thing again, or for the very first time, and I'm going to put an end to it once and for all. So it sounds very fatalistic and absolute. And when things are that serious and either it is or it isn't, it can put a lot of people off. Because most of us don't like absolutes. We don't like being confronted with something like an ultimatum. Either it is or it isn't. Most of us prefer a maybe. And this isn't a maybe. This is the opportunity then to put a full stop behind things that you no longer like and to make space for things that you want to get going with. So if there's something, again, that's really difficult to shift, like an addiction to a particular substance or a behavior, and you've been waiting for that moment, when am I going to feel strong enough and confident enough to let go of this addiction or to build my life without it? Or when am I going to feel strong enough to leave this relationship that I know doesn't work for me? And when am I going to feel empowered to move forward alone? It's these big, tough questions, you see. The North Node and the South Node, it shows me in your birth chart where you're coming from on a spiritual level and the direction you're moving into. And the North Node here is at 20 degrees in Aries. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, the ram, and it's a fire sign. It says, I've got this whole day ahead of me. How am I going to charge into it? Bulldoze everything out of my way in order to get what I want. And at 20 degrees, again, is cooperation and communication. So I have this wonderful perspective of my life in front of me. I can almost touch it, feel it, see it, hear it. I want to now make the decisions of what directions I'm going to move into. Whether should I focus on letting go of this addiction? Am I looking for a better job? Do I want to have my own property? What is it that you want, basically? So that communication is there via the North Node at 20 degrees in Aries, but it's amplified by the new moon in Capricorn. Because I totally know where I'm at, clear, right? And it's Capricorn. Not only am I willing to charge forward, but I'm also willing to do the hard work and not just to ram through obstacles. If something doesn't immediately shift, I'm going to keep ramming it until it eventually goes. So there's no stopping you here. Just do it. The South Node is at 20 degrees in Libra, and that forms a square with the new moon as well. So we've got two squares. So the new moon connecting with the North Node in Aries. But then it's also 90 degrees away from the South Node. And those two then themselves oppose each other. They're 180 degrees away from each other. And that creates this big red triangle in the chart that's known as a T-square. And that's an area of unresolved friction. Back and forth, but it does peak in one area. And in this case, it peaks with the new moon in Capricorn. So the South Node at 20 degrees in Libra says, I have a very clear connection with where I've come from, and I'm the evaluator. I'm able to look back on my work, my relationships, my living situation in the past, and I have not only a clear view of what's ahead of me, but I also have a clear view of what's behind me. So it's 20/20 vision in both the future and the past. And if you have such a clear vision on both of those two, then as far as I'm concerned, it gives you a much greater sense of I am very grounded in the present. Because I'm informed by what's happened. I have anticipated and planned for what's yet to come. So I can be in the present moment and do the work required to ensure that the future looks the way I want it to look. So it's the perfect moment to do some sort of manifestation work. However you do that, whether it's cutting out pictures in a magazine and sticking them on another piece of paper as a collage and then hanging them on your fridge so that you see them every day, this is what I want. Or whether it's writing something down and rolling it up and burning a candle and some sort of magic ritual, or whether it's as simple as I'm just going to make a list of what I want to do. The process of getting it out of you and putting it into some sort of earthy, tangible format. I mean, I'm making it sound very complicated, but you know, if you're like lying in bed at 3 a.m. and you're like, oh, I've got all of these things to do. When you then get up and say, okay, enough of this, like a hamster wheel, right? I'm just going to write down what I need to do. It often is surprising that it's like, oh, it's just 5 things. Whereas in your head, it feels like 50 things. But the black and whiteness of it all, it can really simplify and anchor things down so that they seem less complicated. So whatever your process is with that, whether you do make lists or whether you walk in nature and you say things out loud, whatever it is, really, connect with that sense of, okay, I just want to anchor all of my feelings and my ideas down in something where I can revisit it in future and where it gives me that instant moment of, it's much more straightforward than I realized. So with this T-square then peaking with the new moon in Capricorn, it's really about, I know where I'm coming from, I know where I'm going. All I need to do to activate that is to be willing to do the work. And you certainly are. I find it much easier to do work when I know what I'm doing. If the whole thing is totally unfamiliar and it's like, what am I walking into? That's when it becomes a problem. But all of this gives you that wonderful foresight. So it's really a great opportunity to set these goals, these intentions for the future, so that you enter this new era with your bags packed neatly and that you're ready for the trip, so to speak. Okay, so those are the only relationships that the new moon forms. I told you it was straightforward and simple. It's conjunct to Pluto. It squares the south and north node, which then oppose each other. Chiron sitting on top of the north node, and that's it. I'm just going to check the chart so I'm not missing anything, and I'm double checking. And I'm glad I did, because I did miss something. It's semi-squares. It's 45 degrees away from Saturn in Pisces at 4 degrees, which is the ruler of Capricorn. So that's a big thing. Saturn is structure and a concrete slab on which you can build your house, right? It's the thing that grounds you and makes you feel solid. 4 in numerology is security and structure, so more of the same. But Pisces is about everything that's invisible and ethereal and spiritual and musical and creative and healing. So the security you have on top of all of this is a sense of my higher self has got my back. And anything that I commit to is solid and is going to work out. I don't need to act as if everything's going to work out, because on some level, via this connection with Saturn, I know that everything's going to work out. So that underlines this point that I made earlier, that this bravery isn't just something that suddenly appears within you. It's because your higher self is kind of supporting you to be brave. It's saying, please do act. Please be decisive. Please have good boundaries. And that's it. Yeah. Okay, so let's look at each sign then. So because this is a new moon, I mentioned this thing that it's a good idea to do manifestation work and to ground your ideas in something that you can then look back on that exists in its own right. So consider how you manifest things, how you can kind of create your own ritual with this, because really the new moon for each one of the signs, I feel, is going to ask you a particular question. And for Aries, for you guys specifically, the question is, what do you want to do differently in your career? Now and moving forward into 2024 and beyond. Is this job still the right one for you? Is your schedule still something that suits you? So please ask yourself, Aries, the structures of my working life or what I'm working towards, are those still appropriate and good and effective? So you really align with the traditional meaning associated with Capricorn, that this is my work, my career, the physical and intellectual structures of my life as they relate to me using my energy and then getting an income out of it. So if you're an Aries who has considered that, you'll find it very easy to get to a final conclusion. Taurus, the question for you is, how do you want to progress in future? What can you learn? What can you expand upon? Consider what you don't know and look at how you can fill the gap. That's where I want to get to. This is where I am now. What is required for me to get there? You'll be able to figure out the practical action steps required very easily. Gemini, please ask yourself, what groups can help you in future? How can I delegate some of my work, some of my errands, things that I need to do? How can I involve other people so that I'm not doing everything completely by myself? Also ask yourself, how can you connect with others to expand your work, and people who can, for instance, broadcast what you're doing to reach a greater audience. Or ask yourself, who can help you change the way you operate by teaching you something in order to be more effective in your work. So for you, it's very much about who can I communicate with, who's got the right experience, who's got the right knowledge to help me with what I'm doing, and how can we work in tandem. Cancer, please ask yourself, what is it that you want to manifest in your relationships? You'll be able to look at where you are now, where you've come from in the past, and where you want to go. And particularly in the areas of your relationships, look at what isn't here at the moment and what it is you want to create in future and how you're going to go about doing that. So again, we're talking practicals. If I'm single and I want to be married, what am I going to do to get from this point to the next point? It's almost looking at that, which is an area of life that can often feel very out of your control. You know, when am I going to meet the right person? It could happen next week or in 10 years. This gives you the sense that, what can I do about this to make myself more accessible, to create the relationships that I want in my life? Leo, how can you take some of the pressure off and find a better work and life balance? So please ask yourself, Leo, what do you spend a lot of time and effort doing that isn't making much of a difference, and how can you shift things around so that you are using your energy in a way that's appropriate and that makes a lot of difference? So less is more. How can I work in a way that's more focused, less scattered and vague, so that I create more specific and solid outcomes? Look at it in the sense of, what am I putting out? No, the other way. What am I putting in, and what am I getting out of that as a result? And try and look at it as in 50-50. If I'm making this much energy and effort, then I would like either the same or more. Anything where you're putting in all the effort and you're getting very little back, that's a big sign that maybe that needs some tweaking in your life, whatever area that is. And that's what you become very focused on and very clear on. Virgo, ask yourself, where am I coming from when it comes to love, as in the past? Where am I now, and what do I want to manifest in future? Am I satisfied with where I am? You'll get a very clear yes or no on that. So the question then becomes, am I willing to do the work and to work on my relationships to bring more joy into my life? Or do I expect those things, and do I operate in a way that kind of makes it seem like I expect everything to come to me? So you'll get a clear sense of, where are you kind of not putting as much effort in, and if you adapt that and change that, where you can get a better result. Libra, please ask yourself, what do you want to create as far as your support network is concerned? What gives you a sense of home? So the question, am I using my energy effectively? And again, what areas do I give, and where do I actually receive? So someone calls me up with their problems all the time, but then when I pick up the phone and I want to talk about my stuff, they're like, oh, I've got to go, bye. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but that kind of thing becomes very clear. As in, you know, I've listened to hours and hours and hours, and then when I have something I want to discuss, suddenly you're very busy. So it's really about where you receive support in your life and what you can do to change that, to make it more equal, again, 50-50. Scorpio, the question for you is, what can you do to make life easier by letting other people in? So, do you have to work secretly by yourself? Where is that justified and where isn't it? So for instance, if you've got the idea for a new business, but you haven't copyrighted or trademarked that, it makes sense to work in secret because you don't want anyone else to steal your idea. But what areas of your life are you very secretive about that you don't really need to be? And again, where would it benefit you to trust another person to take some of the pressure off? Because for me, the question would be, at the end of the day, I can't trust somebody. It's not like you're here completely on your own. There will be people in your life, or there will be people who you can bring into your life who you can trust. You don't need to do everything solo. Sagittarius, very literal question. Ask yourself, are you getting paid what you're worth? Are you working in a way that you find valuable? Or are you working towards creating value in your life? And what is your real intention behind that? So are you wasting your time expending a lot of energy on things that really have absolutely no benefit? For you, it's really about bringing it down to the very basics. And what do I have to show for this in a tangible way? Capricorn, for you, it's more existential. So when you're doing this kind of manifestation work, the question for you guys, who are you in essence? And how can you lean into that and use all of your natural skills instead of continuing to try to be something that you're not? So you can become very clear on, where am I naturally supported? What have I been able to do since childhood that I can still do now as an adult? And how can I create more of that in my life and naturally lean into these things that I was gifted with? And how can I become aware of areas of my life where I constantly feel like I'm chasing some sort of identity that feels other, that feels like it's out there somewhere and I have to reach for it, and it always seems to be getting further away. So the question then is, are you good enough as you are right now? Or do you need to change? And that's kind of a rhetorical question, because it's not so much am I good enough, but what parts of me are naturally good enough where I don't even question that, where I know this is who I am and who I've always been. Where are the areas of life that I'm really pretending, or that I feel I'm not good enough and I have to do something in order to pass or to qualify? And the message for you, Capricorn, is then to become clear on that and to embrace those things where you feel you naturally are that thing, and to make it bigger, and to let go of those things where you feel like you're pretending, or you're having to put on some mask, or what's the word? Where you have to wear some sort of artificial layering. So what's authentic, what is not? Where do I naturally feel good and excellent? And where are those areas of my life where I always feel like I'm not good enough and I'm always just chasing things? Aquarius, how can you see the bigger picture and become more informed in what's going on around you? And what new ways of operating can you come up with by yourself? So for you, it's particularly important, how can I shut out the noise here around this time of the new moon, 10th, 11th, 12th of January? And how can I listen to my inner guide to show me a particular area and where I can change to have a better outcome? So for you, it's more about what's already happening and what new ways of operating within those areas of your life can you embrace and adapt for yourself in order to have a better result. Pisces, what are my hopes and dreams really? What are the top 3? And what can I do starting now to realize these? So what is important to you? What do you want to manifest? For you, it's really the most straightforward sense of, these are my hopes and dreams in all areas of life. So it's really your choice, and then try and simplify and say this is the top one or the top two or the top three. This is what I want to do in 2024, and this is how I'm going to go about making it happen for myself in truth, in earnest. So this new moon is interesting, you see, because I asked all these questions for each one of the signs. So in those particular areas, by asking yourself those questions, you can get clear on where you are now and where you want to be, and what you can do to travel from point A to point B easily and without a lot of complication. So I hope that gives you an idea of what you'll be working with here during this new moon in Capricorn. If you would like a personal reading with me, please get in touch via my website. It's gregoryscott.com. On the front page, click on book your reading to audio reading with me. In my personal readings, I use astrology, the tarot, numerology, and my intuition. And to draw up your birth chart, I need your place of birth, date of birth, and time of birth. If you don't have the time of birth, then please order a chart rectification with me. That's a process where I work out your time of birth. And once I have that, then I'm able to draw up your natal chart, which is a snapshot of the sky at the moment you were born. And that then tells me a great deal about who you are, what's coming up in future, and where you can naturally ride the support waves, and what areas kind of need a little bit more work. So if you have any questions around your love life or travel or moving or finance or spiritual development or friendships or anything at all, please do get in touch with me for a personal reading. I hope you have a wonderful time here during this new moon in Capricorn, and check out some of my other videos, the weekly horoscopes, the daily tarot readings, and the monthly horoscopes for each sign of the zodiac. Have a great time, and I'll speak to you soon.